Okay, so what I was saying is if you see there's red lines in the timeline on a specific frame, that means that at least one attribute is keyed on that frame. Now, if I were to press S, it keys everything at frame 5 because that's the frame I had selected. And it still just has a single red line. Okay, so that's important to notice so you don't get confused. The other thing to notice is if I deselect this cube, these red lines are going to go away. It's not showing me it only shows you keyed information for objects that you have selected. That also is important to realize. So if I wanted to see those again, then I would have to select that object, in this case the cube or the box. I'm going to undo that key. Okay, now if I know that the translations are all going to be really important for me in my scene, and I want to animate the translates, then I can press, remember the QWERTY keys. You have your W switches to your translate tool. This is the easiest way to remember this. W switches to your translate tool, your move tool. E switches to your rotate tool. And R switches to your scale tool. Most likely, you will hardly ever be animating your scale. So you won't need to use this shortcut very often for the scale. But if I want to key just the translates, I can key the X, Y, and Z translates all by holding down Shift and then pressing W. Okay, and you can see that the translate X, Y, and Z all turned red in my channel box. And at frame 5, I now have a red key mark. Okay, now if I wanted to key the rotations, at frame 12, I select frame 12 and I can press Shift E. And now the rotations are keyed. And then if I want to key only the rotations at frame 18, let me rotate it a little bit so it can kind of even make sense a little tiny bit. So I rotated it. I'm on frame 18 and I press Shift E. And now I've got keyed information at frame 18. Okay. Now that I have keys in here, I can jump around to these keys, and this will be important, by using this step forward one key or step backward one key or step back one key. Okay, so if I click this, it takes me back to frame 0 because that's where the next key backwards is. But if I click forward, it's going to go to frame 5. If I click it again, it's going to go to frame 12 because that has a key on it, and frame 18, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, let's say I really like this animation, but it's in the wrong spot. I need it somewhere else on my timeline. I need to shift it. So what I can do is hold down Shift on my keyboard and click and drag and select all the frames that contain the keys that I want to shift. And again, this is where it's important to remember, it's only doing this for the objects that you have selected. Okay, after I do that, now I can click on this double arrow in the center and I can scrub this, I can move it on my timeline. Okay, sometimes you realize that the motion should be a little faster than what you made it. So you can grab the end of one of these selections and you can shrink down that animation. And now it's going to play back really fast. Okay, I'm going to undo. I should mention that doing that can become a real pain. So you don't want to do that. And you can avoid having to do that a lot by making sure that your animation playback preferences are set correctly before you begin to animate. Okay, now I need to show you guys what's called a graph editor. To do that, I'm going to select all my animation and I'm going to delete it for now. The only way you can delete, well, one of the ways you can delete keys is to hold down Shift, then drag select a portion of your timeline, and then right click on your timeline. Didn't mean to do that. Right click on the timeline and press delete. And now all those keys are gone. If I go to my channel box, none of my attributes are red. I know that there's no keyed information there. Okay. Now I'm going to open up what's called my graph editor. Let's see. You can get to this a couple different ways. I clicked on this icon down here, and because I'm working on my laptop, I don't know. Things are condensed so much you can't really see that that's the layout that I wanted. But what you can do, let's just start from scratch. So this is my layout with my panels. Well, I could go to Window, Animation Editors, Graph Editor, and it's going to open up this editor in its own window on top of the others. But if you want that to be docked, then what you can do is you can go to Panels from the Panel menu and go to Layouts, and you can do 2 stacked. Okay, and then on this, you go to Panels and you can select the type of panel that you want. So let's see, Panel, and I want the Graph Editor. Okay, so I know things are getting really condensed right now, so I'm actually going to switch to this view, and I'm going to change this panel to my Graph Editor. Okay, so now I don't have any keyed information on this object. I want you to notice how things change in the Graph Editor here. So as soon as I press, you can see as I scrub the timeline, let me back up. As I scrub the timeline, this red line represents my time in the timeline. Okay, it has a red number on it also to tell me which frame that I currently have selected. If I go to frame 0, it doesn't show at all anymore. I can press F on my keyboard to frame my animation, which I don't have any. So it just zoomed in. I can also right click and zoom, just like I do in my other panels. Okay. Now I need to set some information on here. So I'm going to press Shift W to key my translates, and I got some dots in my graph editor. Okay, those represent keys. And I can change my time, and I can press Shift W again, and I've got more keys. And now those keys are connected by lines. The lines are called your tweens. So if I press A, it will frame all of my animation. If I press F, it will frame only what I have selected. Okay, so over here on the left, I can select the attributes that I want to be able to see. And I'll click frame, and there's my animation. I didn't actually change it. So it's important to be able to understand this. It's a little bit mathematical, but don't let that scare you because it's only just a little bit. What this is saying is my Z, so if I select a key by drag selecting, I accidentally moved it, but by drag selecting over it, it turns yellow, and it tells me which attribute